Hey everybody, how's it going? In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you about lists in HTML, how to make them, how to use them, the attributes that we're going to be using in them, and all that stuff in just three simple steps. In our first step, we're going to be talking about the different types of lists, and then we're going to move on to the content of the list, and then after that, we're going to talk about the attributes that you can use to, make the list the way you want them to look. And with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so for our very first step, we're gonna be talking about the different types of lists that are available in HTML. The first one is an ordered list, and then we have an unordered list, and then after that, the less commonly used data list. Right, so let's talk about each one of them individually and their context. First of all, we have our order list, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The content of the order list is always going to have a certain order to it. For example, in here we use a caption tag to add a title to our list, which you can see right here, and we wrote HTML, CSS, and Java. And the reason we did this is because you have to learn HTML first, and then move on to CSS, and then move on to JavaScript. You can't just learn JavaScript from the start and then go for HTML, then go for CSS, right? So there's a certain order to how you want to learn these three programming languages. So that's why we put them inside an ordered list. And for unordered list, we put content in here that doesn't really matter what order you're using them or what order they're presented in. For example, grocery. We have milk, bread, and meat. It doesn't matter, if you're gonna buy milk first, or you buy bread first, or you buy meat first, right? It doesn't really matter. You just need to remember that you're supposed to buy these three things, and that's all that matters in this list, right? And then lastly, we're gonna be talking about data list. Now, for data list, it's a little bit different. For these two right here, for ordered list and our unordered list, we use li to basically have this li tag. Inside the li tag, we put the content that we want to be shown in our list. For example, we put HTML right here inside this li tag, and it shows up in HTML. And of course, the li in an ordered list works differently from the li in unordered list. In our unordered list li, it goes like this. There isn't any number to it. There isn't any order to it. But for our data list, it's a bit different. We have DT and DD, right? So now I'm going to talk about what these do. Our DT, or the data term, is used for the name of what we're going to be talking about. So for example, I chose Mortal Kombat right here, which is a video game, and then we added a description for it in a 2D fighting game. Or I guess a 2.5. But yeah, let's just go with 2D fighting game. And after that, we have Doom, first-person shooter. We added title attribute to it. So if you hover our mouse over our FPS, it says first-person shooter. And yeah, so we have our description, and then we have our term or name. And yeah, that's a data list. So that's it for the first step. Super easy. Three types of lists: order list, unordered list, and data list. Okay, so here we are with our second step, number 2. We're gonna be talking about the actual context and the content of our list. In our first step, we talked about the different types of lists, and now we're gonna talk about the actual content of them. What we write inside our list tag. So first of all, we have our caption, which we use to add title to our list, which you can see right here. And then after that, we move on to our li tags. Now, li tags are used to actually add items to your list. For example, we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript right here. If you go to our site in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we added this selector, class selector, so that we can later on use this and add style to it. For now, don't worry about it, but basically know that we use our class to select these li tags. Next, we move on to our unordered list. Again, caption. We use the same thing. It's basically the exact same thing as as ordered list, but this time with the context of being an unordered list. So, the order of it doesn't really matter that much. Lastly, we move on to data list, and we talked about this in the previous part a little bit as well. We have DT or data term, and then we have the description for the DD, the data description, which try to explain what our term is, what our data term is. And that's it. Okay, so now we're gonna be talking about the styling section of this video. But before we do that, first of all, we have to talk about two things. Number one, we use our link to actually say where our style is. Right here we said href-style.css, and we've added real style sheet for it. And then we also have our first of all, we go over to our order list, and we have the li tags. We have a class for all of our free li tags, and they're called list item, right? And then for our unordered list, we have a li. For our li tags, we have the class list items number 2. Alright, so we gotta talk about those two, and then we're gonna move on to our actual styling. So first of all, I added the styling for a body. You don't have to do this. It's not really that much related. Just add a color to it so that it looks like this. It looks a little nicer, and we have added borders for all of our lists, so they're separate from one another. Okay, so now let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of the video. First of all, we have our order list that we're going to be talking about. So let's just remove these common parts, and we can actually talk about them. So first of all, we have list style and type. List style type right here. So what does this styling do? Well, basically you can use this to choose the number or whatever that's going to be displayed behind your list information or list data. For example, if I go upper Roman, and I save this. Sorry, I save this, and I actually go back and run the site again. We can see that our the number that used to be here, for example, it was 1 before. Now it's changed to 2, it's in Roman numbers now, right? And we can change this to lower, so it's lower Roman numbers. You can mess around with this stuff and find out the different properties this styling has. But we're just gonna talk about some of the most common ones. Lower, and then we're gonna do for the alphabet as well. Upper alpha, save that, and if you go back, run it again, it's changed to alphabet. We can just remove this and just say none, so there's nothing in here. And if you save this and run it again, it's just empty, right? So you can do this. You can it's very flexible. You can really mess around with this stuff and make your list look exactly the way you want it to look like. So I highly recommend that you check this out, check this styling out, and make your list the way you want it to look like. And with that said, let's just comment this out and move on to our next styling. So first, then for our second styling, we have a list style image. Now, what does it do? You basically use this to, instead of having numbers or Roman numbers or alphabet behind our list items, you can put actual images in there. So let's see what that looks like. Enough talking. Let's reload the page. As you can see right here, I've put a small image right here, and it's displayed where we used to have our numbers or our alphabet and stuff like that. So this isn't used too common, but I thought it would be worth talking about. You mainly use this one right here, but I want to talk about that as well. So let's just comment this again. And thirdly, we're going to be talking about this one. This one's actually kind of important. So let's remove this part, and let's just save this and see what it looks like. So right now, you might have seen, well, nothing happened. What's the difference? But here's the thing: list style position. You use this to basically tell our code, where we want this part, our 1, 2, or A, B, or whatever that we choose for this section to be displayed. If you choose inside, for example, let's say we have a border around our HTML. Let's actually see what that looks like. We go for our list item, which selects all of our list in our order list, and we save this and run it again. We can see that we added a border around our li tags, right? These li tags to be exact, these ones. And since we did that and we chose our list style position to be inside, it stays inside the box, right? But let's change that. Let's change that to outside and see what happens. You can probably guess what's gonna happen right now, but yeah, it's exactly what you thought it was gonna be. The list items, I guess the list style positioning change the actual numbers or whatever that you had in here. If you, for example, if you had let's say alphabets, the same thing would still work. Upper alpha, and let's save that. Let's run the site again and see it still works. So that's what I'm talking about for our order list. Now we're gonna move on to our unordered list. Pretty much the same thing goes, except there is a small deviation that I want to talk about. For example, and you can do this, what I'm talking about, in our order list as well, right? But for our unordered list, for example, let's say instead of having whatever is the default, instead of having these small circles right here, we want to change to a different shape. We want to have a square. So just save this and see what happens. If you save and run that page again, now it's changing to a square. You can even do this with, let's say, upper alpha. So now if we run our site again, It's changing to A, B, C. So you can see that even though this was an unordered list, we still can make it look like it's an ordered list, right? So keep that in mind. The same thing goes for images. What we did with our previous image in our order list can be done here as well. And the same thing goes for inside and outside as well. And we're gonna just to make it see, just to show you guys what it looks like. We're gonna remove these parts. We're gonna add border to our unordered list. We'll save this and see what it looks like now. So we added border, and since we chose inside, it actually stayed inside. Now let's change this to outside, and our A, B, and C should also go outside our border. So let's run it again. There we go, they're outside. It's just as simple. Finally, we have our DL, which we added a simple border to it with a different color to make it look different. There isn't really much to say about this one. Yeah, you mainly want to use your order list and your unordered list, and you don't want it to make it look like this. You want to, change this to, I don't know, like a circle or square or something like that. But you don't want it to look like that, because people are going to confuse this with your order list. But you want your unordered list and order list to look different from one another. If you just remove this, it goes back to its original shape. Just save this again. Let's go back to field circles. And yeah, that's it. That's HTML listing with 3 simple steps. First of all, we had the different types of lists. Have order list, unordered list, and then we have data list. Then secondly, we're gonna talk about are the content of our list. Captions, LIs, DT and DD, and we finally moved on to our styling, to make it, make some work with some of the styling we had access to. For example, this style type. This was the most important one, and then after that, we also had this style position, and that was about it. And we used, some border to show you guys what it actually looks like. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching to the very end. And I want to say that I want to ask you guys to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you had any troubles or any problem with this video. And definitely don't forget to like, since it helps out the video a ton. It's a great way to support me. And turn on notifications, since YouTube doesn't work right. We all know that it just sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. And with that said, thank you so much. With that said, that's the end of the video, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And I'll see you guys next time.